the disrespect. I was like, oh my gosh. So they look so embarrassed, because they know she's drunk. And so Jack calls the driver around and he's like, come around here. Come get us. Like, we're leaving. And so Jack takes her and they leave. And, Mira, of course, is apologetic to Elaine. It's like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, no, I understand. She's like, she had a father that was an alcoholic. And he's the one that killed them in a car accident, him and his wife, their mother. So she thinks about, it's a hard situation, and she wonders, if maybe someone could have, gotten him help or staged like an intervention. Maybe her parents would still be here, and maybe she wouldn't have gone down that road that she went down. And so she kind of shares that information with Mira, and she also kind of tells her about her past of stalking, because Mira didn't know all this stuff. And so then they leave, and she goes to see Hudson, and she sees Celia across the street, and the heifer waves at her. I'm like, damn, mind games, playing mind games. And so when she goes back into the building, when she goes in the building, she sees that Hudson's like coming from a lunch date with Norma Anders, and she loses it, and she starts questioning him when they get back in the office. She's like, well, that was a lunch date with Norma? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, well, why did you have to do a lunch date? What do you guys have to talk about? And I was like, oh my gosh. I couldn't do it. That type of questioning is just ridiculous. Like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And so he answers her questions, but he can't give her all the information that she wants to know, because she wants to know, why is it that you're working so closely with that employee? I want to know why. And he's not going to tell her. And then she tries to compare the situation to David. And then she tries to demand that he transfer Norma. And he says, I can't do that. With the deal we're working on, I need her. That's not going to happen. And so then she basically has a hissy fit and acts like a kid to me. Like one of those, oh, so you can do that and I can't do it. And it's just like, come on, these are two different situations. You're not sure what the nature of the relationship is with Norma, right? But we know that you were kissing and stuff with David. So there's a huge difference. And you can clearly see that David is in love with her. Whereas Norma may want to screw Hudson. She may look at him like he's candy. But that might not necessarily mean a threat, But what you got is a real threat, is how I view it. And so he doesn't fall for the bait. She just tells him, she makes a demand of, well, you can only meet with her in public situations. And he agrees to that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just so too much. So then after leaving Hudson's office, she goes to an Addict Anonymous's meeting, which she clearly needed, because she was spazzing out for, I feel, no reason. And it's all heightened by the different things. Like, you got Celia coming around, and it's just hiding, it's just heightened your paranoia. You don't know what's going to be on Stacy's video. That's on your brain. And you don't trust Norma. So it's just a compound of things for her. So I was like, yeah, I'm glad she went to go talk to Lauren. So they had a good conversation. The next day, she has her interview with Gwen Anders, Norma's sister. And she asks her, well, why are you leaving the Club 80? I think it's called Club 88. Because it's like the rival club to the Sky Lounge. So it's like one of the hottest clubs in the city. And she just basically tells her that it's for personal reason. And she doesn't really want to go into details. And Elena thinks it's because she wants Hudson. And she asks her that shit. I was so like, girl, you look so incredibly insecure. Which she is. And I understand that. But that's just not a good look. Like, this is an interview. And you asking this woman, well, are you doing this to try and get closer to Hudson? What the like, who does Gwen's better than me, because I would have been like, you know what, I'm good, because you're a problem. I don't want this work environment. But she lets her know it's nothing like that. She's like, I respect him for his business ideas and his success, but nah. And Gwen doesn't agree with everything that she thinks it would be a good idea for the Sky. So I think that's a good balance. So she agrees to hire Gwen. So then she sends Hudson like a ton of messages while she's at the club that night, telling him like all her fears and thoughts, because that was one of the things that Lauren had kind of told her, you need to, really vocalize your feelings or write them down, like, but let him know how you are feeling. And so she doesn't get a response. And so, but it shows that it's unread. So she's just thinking like, okay, maybe he's asleep. So then when she gets home, she looks at his call log and she sees that he spoke with Norma around, I think, 8-ish in the evening for about 12 minutes. And of course, now her mind's starting to do that. So she wakes him up, and then of course he goes right into eating her pussy, and she's okay for then. So then he's like, you know what, we need to get away. So he takes her on a getaway for the weekend up in the mountains. They of course have like great erotic sex. He tells her, that she owns him and he'll basically do anything in the world for her. And so they come back to the city. They go to Mira's for a fitting, because Mira's having like a grand reopening because she did an expansion. Stacy's there. Stacy's being really curt, And Elena asks her like, what's the problem? And she's like, you didn't have to tell him about the video. And Elena was like, how do you know I told him? And I'm like, well, how do you think she fucking knows? Like, clearly he said something to her. Like, come on, don't be that dumb. So Stacy says, well, he's been trying to contact me for like the past week via email and even phone calls, like trying to find out like what's on that tape. And she's like, and even like he's warned legal action against me too. So then Elena says the dumbest shit ever. And she goes, why wouldn't he tell me? And like Stacy yells at her, and she's like, because he's a liar. So now Elena wants to see this video, and she asks Stacy to send it. So she watches the video, and it's a video. It shows Hudson and Celia kissing. And then as Celia's about to walk away, he grabs her and he pulls her in for another kiss. And this time it's slower and it's sweeter. And he even has this like beautiful smile on his face when they're done. So when she looks at the background of the video, it's the Stern Auditorium, which is where they had the symposium where he first saw her. So now it looks like he's playing the game with Celia. It's not just by himself. Like, they're doing this together. So she starts drinking when she goes home, and when Hudson arrives, they have an argument about the tape. Hudson refuses to explain himself. Elena goes from, like, I don't think I can do this. And because he never changed his stance, like he was like, it's past, it's not what you think, but he would not go into detail to tell her what actually happened. And she's like, how in the world can we like do this if you're not going to be honest with me? And he's like, you just have to trust me. You just have to trust me. And she, at that point, he's like, maybe we need to take a break. She lost it. Don't leave me. I love you. She freaks out and she's begging him to stay. And he says, we aren't broken up. He was like, but we need some time apart. And he's like, I just can't keep watching you unravel like this. I was like, damn. So he leaves and he goes to the loft, aka the old fuck pad. And she, of course, she's depressed. She sent him a couple of text messages the next day, but then she stopped herself because Hudson does like it when she gets, a little psychotic, when she gets a little obsessive, he loves it, Um, because he says it makes him feel like she cares. So it made her kind of stop herself, like, wait a minute, let me not give into that. So she goes for a run with her driver, bodyguard slash bodyguard Jordan. He beats her, and then she goes to the club, and there's another bodyguard that she has, like that, like for like the second shift, because he has someone on her 24 hours when he's not around her. And so she tells the bodyguard Reynolds, like, yo, you can take the night off. And I'm sitting there going, this man, yes, he's protecting you, but this is a Hudson employee. Like, but the guy said he was going. He's like, okay, cool, I'll be back at 3 to get you. So she's thinking he's gone. So after he leaves, and then Gwen has kind of shown that she really is the right person for the job. Like, she gets it, she's good at it, and so it's working out really well. And then Celia pops up while Elena's talking to Liesl. And then, of course, Elena has this worried look on her face, and then here comes David, like, what's wrong? Like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And so then Liesl, like, just told it. She's like, Lainey's got a stalker right over there. Her name's Celia. And Elena gets upset because she's like, she didn't want people to know. But I'm like, if someone's stalking you, sweetheart, you kind of want other people to know. You have a history of stalking. So you have a history of being a little cuckoo when it comes to people. So you want witnesses at all times when things are happening to you. So I was like, nah, good for Liesl for saying to other people, yeah, it's a little stalker here, so people are aware, And so then she gets a phone call, and of course it's Hudson. And Hudson's like, who told you could just tell him to have the night off? Like, that's not how this works. And she was kind of mad, but she's like, well, I figured he could just, there's security here. Like, I figured it was okay. He's like, no, he's to stay on you. Thank goodness he called me and told me. So he saw where Celia was in the building. And so she goes outside to try and see him while he's on the phone with her. And she sees that Norman's in the car because he drove there, and she loses it. She's like, why is she in the car? He tells her it's just business. And then he hangs up. He's like, I gotta go. And he hung up. So she's furious. But then Celia walks out of the club. And then that's when Elena goes and tells security, hey, put her picture up. She's banned from the club. And I'm sitting there going, why the hell they didn't do this before? Like, shouldn't she have been banned before? Like, this was not her first time, like, walking, trying to be around you. Like, you should have been put a photo up. But I digress. So, Elena decides, that night she goes home, and Hudson calls Elena. He's like, I need you. And she's like, what's wrong? And he's like, Mira's in the hospital. Something's wrong with the baby. And so, of course, she jumps up and she goes. So when they go in the room, so Jack's there, Sophia's there. And then they go in the room to go see Mira, and she can tell they're off. Something's wrong. She's like, listen, I have enough stress with those parents. I can't deal with the stress of you two as well. Go out, do whatever you need to do to be lovey-dovey again, and then you can come back and see me. So they leave out, they go have a conversation, and, they got to kiss or do something to kind of make themselves lovey-dovey. So she's like, I'll fake it pretty much for Mira, because Mira don't need no more stress. Poor baby. She only like 5 or 6 months along. So it's like, she don't need no more stress. Because she was having like contractions like every 3 minutes. So yeah, it wasn't good. So after that, they find out Mira's gonna be okay. They are gonna keep her overnight, and they release her like that next morning. Elena goes back to the apartment, and Hudson goes to work. Mira at first was like, wait a minute, why aren't you taking the same car? And he's like, I gotta go to work, and Elena's going home, and she's like, oh, okay. So she bought it. So